So this is the second in my A to Z series about words which are going to help expand your English vocabulary. So the more astute amongst you might have figured out, seeing as it's week 2, that today's word is going to begin with the letter B. And unfortunately, you're going to hear this word more and more over the coming months because the common consensus amongst economists is that we're about to enter the mother of all global recessions. Any ideas what that word could be yet? Well, B is for bankrupt. B is for bankrupt. Apparently, the word entered the English language in the 16th century and is a corruption of the Italian word bancarotta. So let's start with a definition. Bankrupt, adjective, to be formally recognised as having no money and no means to pay debts. So it has a very specific legal meaning in this context. Now let's take a look at some synonyms, words that have a similar meaning to bankrupt in this case. We've got insolvent, which itself is the opposite of solvent. When someone is solvent, they have access to money. When they're insolvent, they don't. And we also have ruined and out of business. I want to take a look at the way we use the word bankrupt in a couple of example sentences. First one here, it is anticipated that many companies will go bankrupt over the coming months. Note will go bankrupt. There is a common collocation of the verb to go and bankrupt. It is anticipated that many companies will go bankrupt over the coming months. And in our second example sentence, following the collapse of his property business, he was declared bankrupt. He was declared bankrupt. And we use that very formal collocation of the verb declare there because it is a legal process. He isn't a little bit bankrupt. He has been declared bankrupt. It is a legal state of affairs. So what does being declared bankrupt mean in practical terms? Well, firstly, it means that any remaining assets that the person or company has will be sold and divided by creditors. Creditors are those people to whom the individual or the company owes money. But it also means that any outstanding debts will be written off. Written off comes from a phrasal verb to write off, which basically means to discard. So when a debt is written off, it is written off the statute books and the person is no longer responsible for it. We often use the phrase written off to describe cars that have been crashed. When it's no longer worth repairing them, we say that they have been written off. So we might say, John was lucky to walk away from the accident, but his car was written off. It was destroyed. Now, bankrupt also has a secondary meaning, still an adjective, but in a literary form. And it simply means to be lacking in something. Let's take a look at this second meaning of the word bankrupt in a couple of example sentences. Having stolen his own mother's jewellery to pay his debts, it's clear that he's not only insolvent but also morally bankrupt. I mean, who would steal their own mother's jewellery? Someone with no morals whatsoever. So here when we say someone is morally bankrupt, they are totally lacking in any morals. Our second example, after writing a bestseller, the author was bankrupt of ideas. Bankrupt of ideas, meaning lacking in any more ideas. Having run out of beer in the fridge, I wouldn't say I'm bankrupt of beer. We wouldn't use the word in such an everyday context. It's in more of a literary context where someone is morally or spiritually bankrupt, or in the sense that they're lacking in something more profound. In the case of our writer, he's bankrupt of ideas. There is also a noun form of the word bankrupt, and it is bankruptcy, the state of being bankrupt. Let's take a look at how we might actually use the noun bankruptcy in some example sentences. With no means of raising more capital, the firm is about to enter bankruptcy. People or firms enter bankruptcy because bankruptcy is a state, so you can enter it. So there's a very common verb collocation there of to enter and bankruptcy. Increasingly, many companies are facing bankruptcy, that moment in which bankruptcy looks imminent. We say that companies are facing bankruptcy. And finally, with falling sales, the business was forced into bankruptcy. Pretty much no one wants to enter bankruptcy, so it's something that happens against their will. So you often see this collocation using the verb to force. With falling sales, the business was forced into bankruptcy. Now, bankruptcy is obviously a very extreme financial state. So how do we talk about everybody else, from rich people and poor people? How do we describe them? Well, in English, we've got a whole host of adjectives to do just that, depending on whether we want to do it more formally or more colloquially. Let's take a look at this chart. Here, we've got descriptions of poorer people lower down on the chart and descriptions of wealthier people higher up. And on the left-hand side, we've got more formal language. And on the right-hand side, we've got more everyday language. So let's take a look at some of these. You might read in a magazine or a newspaper article about an impoverished family or an area that was destitute. These are quite formal descriptions of almost extreme poverty. Anyone living in these conditions really doesn't have much money at all. On the other side, though, if you're talking amongst friends, you might talk about a dirt poor neighbourhood. You might talk about people who are flat out broke. You yourself might be flat out broke. And often you'll hear English people saying they're skint when they haven't got any money. They're skint. As we move up, we see expressions like struggling, hard up, down at heel, in the red, strapped for cash, and cleaned out. Now, when we use these types of expressions, we are not describing extreme poverty, but we are describing people that are struggling, who are struggling to make ends meet at the end of the month. In the upper left-hand part of this chart, we see a collection of words to describe people with more money. So we have comfortably off, affluent, well-to-do, prosperous, moneyed, wealthy and rich. And as we move towards the top, the amount of wealth that someone has is increasing all the time. So we'd think that a wealthy person has more money than someone who is simply comfortably off. In the upper right-hand part of the chart, we have much more colloquial words for describing people who've got money. So someone who's flush, for example, is someone who at this particular moment in time has access to cash. Someone who's minted also has a lot of money. It comes from the verb to mint. So the Royal Mint in Britain is responsible for manufacturing the coins in circulation for the British government. We also have well-off and well-heeled, which are quite colloquial terms. They're moving right to the top. We don't just have rich, we have stinking rich. There's a sense of jealousy creeping in there and rolling in it. We don't tend to say someone's rolling in money, we just say they're rolling in it. But what about everyone else? What about the people in the middle who are neither poor or neither rich? What do we call them? Hardworking families. Increasingly, this is how the people in the middle are described, particularly in Britain. Politicians all the time are talking about hard-working families. And they're describing people that have got to go out to work every day to bring home a salary, who probably don't have a huge amount of savings, but neither do they have too many debts either. Now, whether or not these people are actually hard-working, who knows? But we call everybody in the middle hard-working families. That was B for bankrupt, and I promise you that my next word won't be so depressing. But if you want to find out what it is, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Take care.